The Rings of Prime by Prime Video. A year of mockery. Wes, hi everybody and welcome to another video. Oh my dear friends, we celebrate a special anniversary these days. Oh yes indeed, it has been a year and a change since the worst piece of television in the history of mankind was introduced. Oh yes, it has been a year since the introduction of the Rings of Prime to Prime Video, as I have been kindly reminded by the Fellowship of Fans over at Twitter, or X as it is called nowadays, a group where you should go if you are very much interested in the Rings of Power, and I are a tremendous fan of it. And I think that it is only appropriate that we remind ourselves of how beneficial this show was for all of us. If you've been following my channel for quite some time, you have seen many videos by me mocking the show, explaining in detail why it's so bad, although you don't really have to be a rocket scientist. Well, not a rocket scientist. You don't have to have a degree from Old English literature as I do. You don't have to have read all Tolkien's books every year for like the last 20 years to know that this is one of the worst shows ever made. But the one very good positive about it is that it has provided us with a lot of material for mockery, a lot of jokes and a lot of memes, and it has brought the fandom together. We have been, in short, in the fact that Tolkien fans are one of the more united fans of all the fandoms there are in the world. Many fandoms are divided, such as Star Wars fandom, comic book fandom, video game fandom, so on and so forth. But Lord of the Rings fans, Tolkien fans specifically, we are very much united. Of course, there are people who don't have as much brains in their heads left as other people, but that's like a matter of any group. But let us very, very pretty, unscriptedly trace the history of the worst TV show ever made and why it is what it is, and why it is, pretty much short and certain that it will continue the way it started and that it will not get better. We got to know a couple of years ago already, that Amazon Prime was going to make an adaptation of some of the works of Professor Tolkien, and a lot of people were excited about it because we thought that they were going to adapt the Silmarillion on the small screen. Now, I have always been saying no. The Lord of the Rings by Peter Jackson was one and done situation. That was something that can only happen once in not only a lifetime, but maybe a century, 2 or 3. And that cannot be repeated, that cannot be replicated, not even by Peter Jackson himself when he made the Hobbit trilogy. You know that the Hobbit trilogy really isn't as good as the Lord of the Rings, although it might have some redeeming qualities, but I have made many videos about that too. Please feel free to check out my channel. And then, of course, we got to know that they were going to focus on the Second Age of Middle-earth, which is not as documented as other ages in Professor Tolkien's texts. And also, still, me as a man who has devoted his entire life to Old English literature and to the greats of the fantasy genre of the 20th century, kept saying, no, this is going to fail, this is not going to be good, especially nowadays, when everything has been taken over by crazy activists. Being on the left or on the right, especially in the United States of America, everything is crazy, and you can't honor good old literature properly today. People didn't believe me. And I made a video 2 years ago, actually, if you look at my channel, called something like Why the Lord of the Rings by Amazon Must Fail. Already at the very beginning of this channel, and I had one channel before that, already I was talking about the failure and the fact that they can't do that. And then we got to know more and more information. The fact that it was going to be made by Patrick McKay and J.D. Payne, disciples of, J.J. Abrams, people who had never done any film or a TV show before, only failed ones and failed pitches. And then we got to know that they don't have the rights to adapt the Silmarillion, the Unfinished Tales, the history of Middle-earth. Wow, what's that? They boasted that they can adapt what? The appendices to The Lord of the Rings. A couple of chapters worth of notes at the end of The Lord of the Rings. And people went, okay, so what can you do? So what they could do and what they can do and what they did is the very same thing that almost every single movie or TV show making company today are making. Milking a famous name for what they think will be a lot of money while producing a very bad product. What they did is take a name here and there from the appendices to the Lord of the Rings and make up their own story, make up their own history, make up their own show, make up their own characters. And even those characters who come by name from the appendices to the Lord of the Rings are unrecognizable and are not even close to the characters as Professor Tolkien devised them. The chief and prime example is Galadriel, or Galadriel from Amazon as I call her, a completely psychotic Mary Sue character swinging a sword from here to there, having temper tantrums and saying that there's a tempest in me. A woman so obsessed with vengeance that she can't see anything around her. A chick who has been almost seduced by Sauron, even though in the source material she was one of the first elves who saw through Anatar. And yeah, there we go to another one, Halbrand, who really is Amazon's original character. It is a brand new Amazon constructed Sauron's alter ego. They, of course, tried to do a southern Aragon hot kind of guy thing who then turned out to be Sauron. And then, of course, everything else, like Uncle Celebrimbor, a man who was supposed to be one of the greatest smiths in the history of Middle-earth just after Feanor. A man who was supposed to be a powerful, mighty elf and really looks like your auntie. And then, of course, all the Harfoots, a sub-breed of hobbits, where, of course, Patrick McKay and J.D. Payne said they were not hobbits, but they really are, who were willing to leave their own kind to be stung to demise by bees. Oh, what a lovely bunch of beings right there. Arondir and Disa, Amazon's original characters, just a virtue signal. And we all know that. And so on and so forth. And all the time compression, like thousands and thousands of years, 3,000 years or so, compressed in like a couple of weeks. Oh, wow. And of course, all those things that don't make any sense that Amazon devised for one reason or another, like the creation of Mordor by a turn of a key. Ah, wow. Where, of course, Mordor was as much as any other dark and unpleasant land created by Morgoth. And, of course, then all the crazy thing about Mithril, which was, discovered by Disa, obviously. And apparently, according to Prime Video, is like a life potion for elves and leaves. Okay, and contains the light of some of the last Silmarils. And even the member berries they were trying to throw in our way were done absolutely wrong. Like a name here and there. A name. That's really, really the only one thing that they can use. Names. And use them incorrectly. And I have made a video a couple of days ago why it can't continue better. Because obviously Rivendell is going to appear in the second season of The Rings of Prime. And I made a video. It was founded at the end of the 1600s of the Second Age. And we know that the time will be compressed. And that the characters who are not elves would have to be more than 100 years old at that time from the Rings of Prime. So, once again, they don't know what they're doing. And even those things that the shills are boasting about, that they're actually good, are not really good. Let's be honest. There's actually another thing that the Rings of Power has provided us. The truth about many people on the internet. The truth about the OneRing.net, about the Fellowship of Fans, about whoever. I don't even know all these Tolkien YouTubers. You know them, I'm sure. You watch them. I have never watched them. I have never needed it. I have just read and reread and reread and reread the books over and over again. Why would I need a shill influencer YouTuber to tell me anything about Tolkien or what he wrote? But they turned out to be huge shills. They turned 180 degrees and are now just exclusively or mainly advertising the Rings of Power. Why would I care about them? Why would I give them any attention? They have blocked me anyway, so bugger them. And so even those things that they have boasted that they are actually good are not really good. They have been praising the music. Can you remember one single note from the soundtrack by Bear McCreary, who has blocked me as well? No, I can't. And the armor and the costumes, absolutely abhorrent plastic-looking shite. The CGI, listen, if you take into consideration the fact that we live in the 21st century, it's 2023, you look at other films that were made not today, but maybe, 20 years ago. If you compare visually The Rings of Power to Peter Jackson's The Lord of the Rings from over 20 years ago, The Lord of the Rings by Peter Jackson is quite obviously superior as far as the visual aspect goes, well, everything else as well. But the visuals, the practical effects in the CGI are 1,000,000 times better than in The Rings of Power, which should have been much better because of the budget and because of the progress in the technology, but it isn't. And even standing on its own, by itself, the show is lazily written. It doesn't make sense. It's got a plot hole upon a plot hole upon a plot hole. And the acting, wow, that's a plank of wood after a plank of wood after a plank of wood. So, The Rings of Power by Amazon. The biggest failure of a television TV show ever made in the history of mankind. But at the same time, a blessing. Because we have had a lot of laughs. And there are a lot of more laughs to come. Alright then, let me know in the comments down below what you think. That will be all. Thank you very much for watching. And I'm out of here.